morning, good afternoon, good evening, assalamu alaikum, barakatuh, ni hao, comment allez-vous, comment ça va? This is Musa, Matt Meacham Jr., signing in on his book writing network. Well, if you're going to write a book, you need to have something to write about. And I think that if any person who writes a book with compassion and passion and objectivity, I think that kind of person who writes a book like that, I think eventually someone will pick up his book and read it. I don't think that book writing is really like, you say, I want to be a financier, or I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be a doctor, or even I want to be a teacher. You say, well, I go to school and learn how to be a teacher. And then I go look for a job and I get me a little job as a teacher. Or I go to law school and get me a law degree. Then after I get my law degree, I look for a firm who will take me, or I try to, just be a solo lawyer. But, I've been trained to do law. So, writing, you saying everybody that's basically educated. And then some of us that are really not really educated. We are all potential writers. But I think that what determines a maestro from just, someone just writing something on a paper is what is that writer saying? How is he affecting other people? How is he appreciated? And how is he respected? And I think of all the attributes of success in whatever has to do with aspects of success. Basically, what I'm doing at this very moment is rhetorical. And with this rhetoric, I could go in any direction I so desire. I had an issue. I work with children, and remember, if you have been following me, you know that I have a children's play. E equal MC squared. Rock and roll. And I've worked with since I started my little. I have a little studio, and I work with anyone who's interested in the performing arts, whether he be a child or an adult. You know, I've written I am working on a film, an Alienation. It has already been written, but I'm rewriting it. And I have a children's play that I want produced. And I'm gonna put forth my efforts on getting both the children's play and the film script produced. Now back to what I was saying. I work with children and I work with adults. Now I need to work with adults to get my movie ready, entitled An Alien Alienation. There's a young man who had talked to me, and he was interested in one of my programs. You know, I teach acting, and I talked to him back and forth, and then he has a child, and he's just a little child, what, 2.5 years old, but this guy, his child, he is totally out of control. The father, I watch him. It is unbelievable. It's unbelievable how this child acts, and the father seems like he's running behind some kind of. It seems like he's with some, like you have a pet, like you got a big German Shepherd, and he just keeps pulling you, and you have no control over it, and this child just rules this man. He just runs, and the man is holding on. And if you let the child go, he came into my studio. He began to start pulling things off my wall. I said, "Oh my goodness!" I said. Then the young man looked at me. He said, "Don't you work with children?" I said, "Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know if I can work with that one." So I went over to his shop, and his child was crying and whining, and I said, "What's wrong with him? You don't seem to have any kind of control." I said, "Why don't you bring him over to my studio? And let me show you how I work with children." I said, "This may be able to help you." He was a little hesitant. I said, "Just let me show you." I said, "It's no cost to you." So he brought the little child into my studio, and he was still acting. The child was acting a fool. He was acting like a wild animal. I said, "What is wrong with him?" It's some kind of psychological thing. But I said, "Let me show you." I said, "I work with children, and I children build sets for me. Children speak English who don't speak English with me." The thing is, I have a knack. It's just child psychology, and if I want the child to do something, generally I can get the child to do it. And so I said, "Come, let me show you how I work with the children." Basically, I would rather work with children from between at least 5 years old. I've had them that young in my drama classes, and they do very well. So I said, "Let's bring them here and let me show you how I deal with children, and maybe this will give you some idea of how you should be able to deal with your child." So he brought the child into the studio. I said, "You sit there," and you sit the child right there. And this child started acting a fool. So I said, "Wait." I was talking to the child. I said, "Wait a minute," in that voice. And the father looked at me. He said, "Don't talk to him like that." I said, "Wait." I said, "See," I said, "I think I know the problem." I said, "But that's the problem. he's ruling you, and he's going around tearing up things, and all the father does is hug him and say, and he said, and the father said to me, I said, well, why does he, if you let him go in my studio, he's going to go over there and tear something down off of my wall. I said, why would he do that? His father said to me that he's just experimenting. But I said, why does he have to experiment in my studio and tear up my studio? Why does he have to do that? So I said, you sit there and you just put him there. Now let me show you how I work with the children. And the child started acting a fool. And I said, wait a minute, stop. He said, don't talk to my child like that. I said, what is the problem? I said, well, I'm trying to show you how you can keep your child under control. And I said, why do you keep hugging on him, this male child like that? And I said, you got a monster here. I said, what's the problem? And then I said, I said to him, are you a homosexual? And he said, what? I said, are you a homosexual? I said, well, I don't understand why you let that child run around like that, because you have to start training your child the very moment you have his control. Now, if that child is going to control you, imagine what happens as he advances and you have not established a discipline pattern with that child. I asked him, I said, well, why? I'm looking at you. I'm only trying to show you how you could actually control your child instead of your child controlling you. And I said, I know there's a lot of homosexuality going around. I said, are you homosexual? And he said, well, what's wrong with that? I said, oh. And I'm saying, okay, I'm saying, what's right with homosexuality? I said, what's right with that? And he said, I said, have you ever? I said to the father, I said, have you ever heard of Sodom and Gomorrah? And he and I got in another discussion, and I said, you have to be in control of your child, or your child is going to control you. Now, your child goes out and he commits. I knew when I was in Kenya. I was talking to a lady, and she told me about her son. She said to me that what happened is her son stole a motorcycle. Okay? Her son stole a motorcycle. You know, the bikes that people ride. And she said that when they caught, not the police, who is they? They. She said that when they finally caught her son, they cut his head off. And all she got from those guys who punished her son, all she got was the bottom part of his body. So she didn't know what they did with her son's head. Her son was a thief. And it wasn't the police, it was just a gang of Kenyans. They caught the thief, cut his head off, and sent the body back to the mama. She said, all I got was I didn't get his head. So what am I saying? I'm saying, okay, another thing. In the Congo, at this very moment, there are so many people in prison, so many young men, young black African men in the prisons in the Congo, that what they do is they execute them for whatever reason they in the jail. They have too many prisoners. The petty crime, it could be petty crime, but there's got so many young men, young Congolese men in locked up in prison, that what they do is, the best thing that we can do is we just have to execute some of them. They have room for the rest. What's going on, Africa? What is going on? What is going on here, Africa? So, I think Africa has a very serious corruption problem. Africa has a very serious corruption problem. And I really think that that corruption problem is based on immorality, on basically homosexuality. There are a lot of homosexuals. There are a lot of homosexuals in Africa. I remember when I first came when I first came to Africa, and I had a girlfriend, and I went to her house with her to meet her, her sister. And I'm talking to her sister, and I'm looking behind me, two men behind me making love. Oh yeah, that was during the Obama. That was during the Obama presidency. So I'm with my girlfriend at her sister's house, and I look around, and there's two big black African men over behind me hugging and kissing. There is a morality issue that has to be dealt with in Africa. You have to deal with that morality issue. Of course, I heard stories of the Mau Mau. Stories when the British, when they came into Kenya and they were beating up the Africans, beating up the Kenyans, and when they got those Kenyans and had them in those concentration camps, they sodomized the men. They were all on top of the soldiers, screwing the soldiers. And the thing is, maybe those incidents are the reasons why there's so much immorality on the continent. Immorality yields corruption. So these acts of homosexuality, and let's face it, it's rampant on the continent. There, you have some countries that they say they will not accept this policy of men making love to men. I'm not going to call the names of these countries because I've been in one of these countries, and I ran into a lot of homosexuality in a country where you're not supposed to have homosexuality. There's an issue with morality. Of course, it's all over the earth. But then Africa is saying it's time for Africa to rule. But if Africa is going to rule, Africa must be moral. Africa must check herself. What does that do with discourse? Book writing? What do we write about? What are the issues that concerns us? What are our convictions? Who do we admire? What do we admire? See, there's all types of questions. Okay, we're talking about writing. What do we write about? What do we write about? What are our concerns? What are our concerns? What are our prejudices? Who do we respect? What do we respect? Why? So you ask those type of questions. You're writing in your diary and you're just writing to yourself. But come on, if you're writing to be read, nobody wants to read anything. Nobody wants to just read some boring thing about you and your lover. Write about something that's going to stimulate, irritate, and irritate. Write about something that's going to touch someone. That's when I write, I'm always thinking, who's going to read this? Whose hands will my book fall in? This is Musa, Matt Beecham Jr., signing out in his book writing course.